Well, we're doing the budget though, too, aren't we?
Perfect. Okay, we'd like to welcome everybody to City Council today. Um, we are going to start our work session. Number one, 2023 financial year audit report. I assume, Chris, is that you?
Yes, we have John from Auditor's Office of Larson, just Larson and Company now, right? And they've done the audits for the past several years, good partners with the city. And they are here just to make a quick presentation to you guys of last year's fiscal audit.
John.
Okay. Is it possible for me to share my screen?
Give Jody just a
Jody's
second.
working on that. One sec.
Corbett's truck just pulled out of here while we're waiting, while she's working on that. What's gone?
Oh, I think it did let me share, so we should be good. All right, can you guys see that?
Yes.
So hopefully you've all been able to review the financial statements. I'm just gonna go quickly through our opinions, what we give an opinion on, what we don't give an opinion on, and the reports that we're required to issue, just so you're all aware of that. And that really kind of encompasses what we do as auditors. And then the majority of the time I want to spend just on the communication letter that we are required to go through with you at the close of our audit. So I'm just going to flip through to our audit report. So the very first report that we issue is the audit report, and it always precedes the financial statements. It's one of the first pages in the financial report. The opinion on the financial statements is the first two paragraphs. The opinion on the financial statements is an unqualified or an unmodified opinion. That means it's a clean opinion. I'm not really sure why we as accountants have to unqualify something if it's good, but we're dorks. So I know it doesn't say unmodified, it doesn't say unqualified, but in that second opinion, that second paragraph, that's what that language means, is that we found no matters that we would have to qualify or give an adverse opinion on the financial statements. The second section, the basis for our opinion, just gives the guidance that we're required to follow, both generally accepted auditing standards as well as government auditing standards, and there is a difference between the two. The next section is your responsibility for the financial statements, and this is one thing. I know they just passed a House bill, and I can't remember which House bill it is, but it's going to change the financial certification that you are required to do as a city. And it's going to more mimic the language of the audit report, just that you're responsible for the fair presentation of the financial statements. There are a couple of sections of that House bill that I'm not really comfortable with, that I'm still having discussions with. And really it's you basically giving an opinion on your own financial statements. And I don't agree with that, because that's our job. That's why we're hired. You're not the ones that are giving opinion. What your responsibility is just the fair presentation of the financial statements to make sure that they're free of, material misstatements, whether that's due to fraud or error. And then our job is to come in and audit all the balances and the notes to the financial statements. That second paragraph in that same section is relatively new in the audit report. And this just means that if there are conditions or events that arise during the year that would prohibit you from continuing as a going concern for at least the next 12 months, then you're required to do an analysis. And you'll see further on in the report, that's also something that we now have to build into our report. This all came about because of COVID. Nobody wanted to talk about COVID. Nobody wanted to talk about what the effects of COVID was on your financial statements, and how it was affecting your business. And so there were a lot of people who rely on the financial statements. And then if that business ends up folding because of our example with COVID, now all of a sudden they're out, whether they're issuing bonds, whether they're issuing banknotes, things like that, where they've relied on that information. If you don't disclose it in your financial statements, then you're misleading the users of the financial statements. So really this just says, hey, if there's issues or concerns that arise similar to something like COVID, then you have to do an analysis and say, this is how we're going to address it. These are our reserves that we have. We can make it through the next 12 months. And there's no issues. And we also, as part of our procedures, like I said, we also look for those things and then look at your analysis to make sure that we agree. The next section is our responsibilities for the audit. And this is all laid out in the engagement letter, but these bullet points just kind of outline what we do and kind of the standards that we follow. We exercise professional judgment and professional skepticism. I explain that to my guys when I'm training them is we know that you're trying to do things right. We're not coming in trying to accuse anybody of anything, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a job to do. So our professionalism and our professional skepticism is, we're scrutinizing everything that you're doing, not to be accusatory, but just to make sure that what you're reporting is accurate. And then we look at the risk of material misstatement, and we'll talk about significant risks when we get to the management letter. That's now a required disclosure in the management letter. We can also put them in the audit report, but I don't know why anybody would want them in the audit report. So we haven't had anybody that wants to do that. And then we look at your internal controls to make sure that there's A, controls that are in place, and B, you're actually following or that they're functioning properly. We can talk about internal controls all day long and you can implement controls, but if you're not going to follow them, they're not doing you any good. And then we look at your accounting policies, make sure that you're following GAAP, and then anything containing in government auditing standards that you need to be aware of. And then that last bullet point is just us looking at your ability to continue as a going concern. What we do not give an opinion on, or what does not fall under our opinion, is the required supplementary information. So that's the management's discussion analysis that always follows the audit report and precedes the financial statements. And that's kind of a Reader's Digest version of what's contained in the financial statements. There's a lot of comparative data. So if you don't want to get in the weeds of the numbers and things like that, the MD&A is the best place to read. It gives you a lot of information about what happened during the year, more in a dialogue form rather than just raw numbers. But because that's not a required part of the basic financial statements, it does not fall under our opinion. But GASB says, hey, if you're going to issue government financial statements, then that section has to always accompany the financial statements. And then there's a section at the after the notes to the financial statements called required supplementary information, and that contains your budget information. And it also contains 10-year schedules for the schedule of contributions for the URS, as well as your proportionate share of the net pension liability. Nobody really cares about that information. But at any rate, those things do not fall under our opinion. And then that last paragraph just outlines that we've performed our audit in accordance with government auditing standards. So I'm going to go to that letter. That's the next letter that we're required to issue. This is a pretty basic and straightforward letter. So when you get a chance, just read through it. Part of government auditing standards just says that we have to look at your internal controls. We've talked a little bit about that. And what we're looking for is material misstatements or significant deficiencies or control deficiencies that are causing, I think I misstated, material weaknesses, significant deficiencies or control deficiencies that are causing material misstatements inside your financial statements. So if there's mistakes being made in the financial reporting, then there's a control deficiency somewhere that's prohibiting you from finding that mistake in the normal course of business and correcting that misstatement before we come to audit the financial statements. So that's kind of what that letter outlines. We didn't find any significant deficiencies nor material weaknesses, so nothing more that we need to report on there. The next report that we're required to issue is for the state auditor. Every year, the state auditor's office outlines certain things that we're required to look at that they feel is important. And we give an opinion on your compliance. So the first opinion we give is on the financial statements or the financial reporting. This one is on compliance. And you'll notice that they've kind of mimicked this report to follow the audit report now. So the areas that we're required to look at is your budgetary compliance, fund balance, government fees, restricted taxes, and then the fraud risk assessment. Most of those are pretty self-explanatory. Chris knows how I feel about the fraud risk assessment. I don't really like it. And I've talked to the state auditors a lot. I kind of hope it goes away. the reason why I don't like it is because it's a one size fits all for everybody. So everybody fills out the exact same form. But Woodland Hills City is different from even Salem City or Spanish Fork City or Salt Lake or Bluff. You know, the risks that you have based on the people that you have employed, the size of the city, the financial reporting system that you use, all of those things contain risk. And so you have your own set of controls to make sure that things are being done right. And they're different for everybody. And so it's really hard to have everybody fill out one form that says, oh yes, we have a low risk of fraud. I just, when we look at that for compliance, what I'm making sure is that you filled it out and it's been presented to the council, and that you've submitted it to the state, because we do our own fraud risk assessment on Woodland Hills City. Everything that we do inside of our audit, we're looking at your controls and we're trying to find, are there areas where we think are susceptible to fraud? And if they are, we need to communicate those to you so that you can take care of those. So our opinion on compliance is also an unmodified or an unqualified opinion. I'm not really going to go through the rest of the letter because like I said, it follows along pretty close to the audit report. So everything is fairly the same. So I am going to hop over to the communication letter. So this letter is separate from your financial statements. And the reason why it's separate is this letter is directed to you as a governing body, as well as to Chris and management. And this is just communication about what we found during our audit and how things went, kind of a closing letter, if you will. Nobody really gets sent this letter. The state auditors, if their findings, will get sent this letter. But really this letter is just for you. So if anybody asks for your financial statements, you don't send this letter with it. You only send the basic financial statements. All right. So our responsibility in relation to the financial statement audit. So we have you sign an engagement letter, and it goes through the scope of our audit, when our audit's going to be, when field work's going to be done, when it's going to be completed, and what we are going to do inside the audit. And that's all contained in the engagement letter. And that's why we have you sign an engagement letter. Compliance with ethical requirements. So our firm, myself and my team have to be independent of Woodland Hills City. So if say I have a family member who is on the city council, then all of a sudden I become not independent, and I have to have another partner who can take my place in order to perform your audit. But even as a firm, if we have an issue like that, there are hurdles that we have to kind of get around to make sure that we stay independent. And that responsibility doesn't lie with Chris. So Chris doesn't have the responsibility to make sure that everything me and my team do, we're remaining independent. That lies with me as the partner to make sure that we can be independent. So basically what this is saying is it's just relieving you of that responsibility, and that lies with me as the audit partner. All right, so I said that we were going to talk about significant risks, and we have had questions on this, I think, by every client as to why all of a sudden this is showing up in your management letter. This is actually a standard across the board that this is now required to be communicated to you. All of our audits, I'm gonna try and simplify it as simple as possible, knowing that like you haven't ever sat down and actually done an audit with us. But all of our audits are risk-based. That means that everything on your financial statements, including the notes, gets assigned a risk. So if we're looking at cash or capital assets, then we look at that section and say, what is the risk that this is misstated? So for capital assets, typically it receives a lower risk, just because it's really hard to pick up a building, or it's really hard to steal a vehicle without somebody noticing pretty quickly. And it's pretty easy to determine historical cost value that should be on the financial statements, because we can look at what you purchased that building for, or what you purchased that truck for, minus any depreciation. So typically the risk of misstatements in the financial statements, or you reporting assets that you really don't have, is kind of lower with capital assets. But if we look at cash has a higher risk, just because inherently cash is easy to misappropriate, and it's also easy to misstate in the financial statements. You can manipulate the financial records via cash very easy. So that gets assigned a higher risk. And then overall, we have significant risk. So based on you're a government entity, based on the financial statement system that you use, based on the number of staff that you have, really it's just, we do so many government audits. We know where the significant risks lie, meaning either there's going to be fraud that happens in that area, or these are typically areas where there are misstatements in the financial statements. So these don't really have anything directly to do with Woodland Hills City. Chris and his staff didn't do anything to warrant any of these significant risks, nor you as a governing body. We just know going into a government audit, these are the specific areas where we have significant risks that we have to look at to make sure that there are not misstatements in the financial statements being caused by these risks. So the three that you can see there are improper revenue recognition. And this one goes all the way back into the 90s when we had the fall of Enron and Arthur Andersen. If you guys remember that, if you read the news back then, if you really cared about it back then. But what happened was Enron was manipulating their revenue to increase shareholder earnings. And then Arthur Andersen was the auditor, and they kind of ignored things and didn't recognize things. So it kind of was the downfall of both Arthur Andersen and Enron. And so our standards changed that said, from now on, every engagement you perform has to be assigned a significant risk to revenue recognition. So nothing you can do about that. We have to recognize that as a significant risk. Cash disbursements, you're a government entity, you're dealing with public funds, you're dealing with grants and contracts. And so there are certain conditions on how and when you can spend money. And so that becomes a significant risk. And then the last two really have to do with internal controls. So management bias. So you can build bias into your financial statements or into the notes. So the best example I have for this is if you are involved in litigation and there's a pretty good chance you're going to lose, you can word that disclosure, because you have to disclose that because it's a potential liability. But you can word it in a way to mislead or misrepresent the true nature of that litigation. Now, you don't want to self-criminate yourself, right? So you don't want to say, well, we're guilty, we're going to have to pay all this money. You don't want to disclose that kind of things in your financial statements. However, you can make it look like you're the innocent party and that there's not going to be any liability. Well, that's misleading to the financial statement user. So you can create bias in the financial statements. Financial statement estimates, over time, estimates can change. There's always estimates in the financial statements. And so you can also kind of change your financial reporting based on how you estimate certain things. Really for the city, the biggest estimate is going to be the URS or the retirement systems. And that's really outside of your control. So one thing that and I think I talked to Chris about this, is anytime you're looking at financial data, especially in the water fund, anything that has to do with the URS, so the net pension asset, the liability, the deferred inflows, outflows, take all those off. Just get rid of those when you're looking at financial data, because they don't mean anything to you. And actually what happens is 2 years ago, you had a large net pension liability. Well, fast forward a year and now you have a net pension asset. So what the URS is saying is, well, we've now fully funded the pension. And so now you have a pension asset. Well, that's your benefit. Well, to get it to go from a liability to an asset, you have to infuse revenue. And then if you fast forward one more year, now all of a sudden it's back to a huge net pension liability. Well, now you have to infuse a big expenditure into your financial statements. And all of that really doesn't mean anything to you, because that's never going to be a liability unless everybody in the URS decides that they're going to retire tomorrow and they have to fully fund everybody's pensions, which is extremely unlikely. And my opinion, I don't agree that you guys have to put all this in your financial statements, but that's a discussion for another day. So, nevertheless, they have to be in there. So they are. All right. So, and then the last one is just management's ability to override control. So Chris, as the finance director, has the ability to create a journal entry. He has to have that authority and that responsibility, because if there's a mistake that's made in the financial statements or at the end of the period, whether it's a monthly period, quarterly period, at the end of the year, he's got to make journal entries to allocate funds or to accrue revenue or accrue expenditures, change accounts payable, things like that. On the flip side, he can also misappropriate or misstate the financial statements via journal entry. So he can do something incorrect intentionally in the financial statements and then hide it or fix it with a journal entry. So this is kind of an inherent limitation of internal controls where you have to have that authority, but then at the same time, you can do things that are inappropriate. So what does all of this mean? It just means that my team, we have to do additional testing based on these 3 significant risks and directed at these 3 risks to make sure that there are not misstatements in the financial statements being caused by these risks. So that's kind of a long discussion for that short little section. But for example, on the journal entries, the additional test we do is we look at every journal entry that's created in the system the entire year. So we look at what's being done, has been approved, is it reasonable, and is it doing what it's supposed to be doing? So we look at every journal to make sure that there are no journal entries that are being done that are inappropriate. So is that clear as mud for everybody? I know that's kind of the biggest question that we get on the management letter.
That was great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We talked about accounting practices. We just make sure that you're using appropriate accounting policies, and anything that comes up, like the new GASB 96, which is subscription-based IT technology, we just make sure that if it's applicable, that you're doing it the right way. We can help you implement it and make sure that you understand it so that things are going smooth in the going forward. We've talked about estimates, so I'm not going to spend any more time on that. The financial statement disclosures. So this just states that there's not really any bias built into the financial statement. So we don't only look at the numbers in the financial reports, we look at the notes to the financial statements to make sure that they are appropriate and that they're stating what needs to be said in an appropriate manner. All right, uncorrected misstatements. So all of our audits, we have materiality. So we don't look at everything down to the nearest dollar or the nearest penny. That would require way more time and it would be really costly for the city. So we deal on materiality. So based on the amount of assets you have or the amount of revenue you have in any one fund, each one of those funds gets assigned a materiality level. And so the only unadjusted or uncorrected misstatement that we had was actually in the property taxes. So what the city had recorded was actually about 13,000 higher than what was confirmed by Utah County. The reason why we didn't make an adjustment to correct what the county said was it was more of a timing issue as to when things were recorded. And so at the end of the day, it's going to self-correct itself. It just so happens that in this period, it was $13,000 higher. But instead of moving it to another period, it's not material. So you can still have a clean opinion, even though we calculated or was confirmed to us a different amount than what's actually recorded in your financial statements. All right. So disagreements with management. We're just required to communicate if there's any disagreements that we have, that it was taken care of, but there were no such disagreements. Circumstances that affect the form and content of the audit report. What this means is if we have to qualify something, let's say, for example, our difference in property tax was so different that there was no way that we could test whether or not your stated value of property taxes was accurate. That's a material misstatement in the financial statements if it was incorrect. But if there's no way that we can test that, then we have to qualify your audit, and then we have to change our audit report to say, we qualified the general fund because we could not test the revenue in the general fund. That didn't happen, but we're just required to disclose that there was nothing noted that we needed to report to you that would change the audit report. Management representation, this is kind of a full disclosure letter that we get from you, just like we have you sign an engagement letter. We have Chris, and I believe the mayor signed a letter back to us at the end of our audit that they've been forthcoming and honest with any information or any questions that we need in order for us to give an opinion. Typically, what I find is if there's certain litigation that's going on or certain liabilities that you don't want to talk about, or it's uncertain, and it's not in the financial statements, and you're hiding that from us, then when we issue the financial statements, we're going to issue an unmodified opinion. But if there's this potential liability out there that's maybe a $5 million liability, that's material to your financial statements, and all of a sudden our opinion is incorrect. So that's the reason why we get representations. It's just that you're expressing to us that you've been honest and you've been forthcoming in anything that we need to know. Consultations with other accountants. If there is an issue that arises, you're more than welcome to go talk to a third-party audit firm. The only requirement is that we also need to know that you're actually talking to somebody and who it is. A lot of times I will call that third party and say, hey, look, here's our understanding. This is how we interpret the code. This is why we're taking this position. And then they can talk, kind of dork to dork, is if that makes sense, rather than Chris trying to talk to us as auditors, where he's the finance director, but we're the auditors. We can have that conversation with other auditors and then come to a conclusion and then make adjustments if we need to, and then move forward. So basically just, you can talk to other people. We don't care. We just have to know that you are talking to somebody. And then other findings or issues, there's times during the year where Chris will call me, and we typically don't bill for those. I love it when my clients call me, because there's things that come up. Chris will call me and ask questions, or if new accounting principles come out, hey, how do we deal with this in our financial statement system? Or, hey, we're running into this issue. We don't want it to be a finding at the year end. So what do we do? I can't bind you into a long-term contract as your auditor based on those conversations. So that's what that's talking about. Is my standards say that we just have to have a good relationship in order to be retained as your auditors. And we have to maintain that good professional relationship. All right, I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions before I go over the finding? Okay. There was just one finding this year, and it's just a budget finding. I don't know that it's really, I don't get wound up about the budget findings. This is a part of compliance where if you're out of budget, then we have to give the finding. But the sewer fund expenditures just exceeded budget appropriations. And we tried to make sure that we take out any non-cash. So you typically don't budget for depreciation. So we'll actually back that out and make your budget, your financial statements actually match what your budget would say, which is the modified accrual. But even when we did that, it was still over budget, a little bit. So really our recommendation is just look at budget to actual throughout the year. So when Chris gives the financial statements, he should also be giving the year-to-date budget numbers, so you can see when you're getting close in any one fund of exceeding the budget. Black and white says if you're going to go over budget, then you have to hold a public hearing and fix it before you spend the money, or really before you even contract to spend the money. But common practice is at the end of the year, you're going to have a public hearing to adopt the next year's budget. And that's when you kind of amend and make sure that you're within budget for all of your expenditures that maybe have gone over in the prior year. So that's what our expectations is. At the end of the year, when we come, we just want to make sure that you're within budget. And that's it.
John, do we know why that excess was created?
Yes, and I'm trying to remember why. While I was explaining it, I was trying to remember why. Do you remember why, Chris? We talked quite a bit about it.
Yeah, the sewer one.
Yeah.
This one here. Yeah, what happened is check came from Payson City for
Yep.
our sewer impact fees and stuff. The money we had cash, but it just wasn't budgeted when the check was written. So we've got some internal policies now, especially towards the end of the year, when these type of bills may come up, if they sneak up on us like this. Like I said, cash was there, it just hadn't been budgeted all the way.
Yep, that's right. Because I remember talking to Chris, and I was going to let you guys know that really the budget test all revolves around expenditures. So what we find typically is when people get a budget finding, they get additional revenue, and so they have the money there to spend. But what compliance says is you cannot spend that money until it's properly budgeted. So state auditors, they'll never look at your revenue. We don't ever look at your revenue when we're looking at budget. All we're looking at is the expenditures to make sure that there was proper budget for the expenses.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, that's all I had. I really appreciate you guys letting me jump in the meeting.
John, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for that explanation.
Thanks, John.
Okay, then we'll move on to point number 2. A request for change of zoning classification from an R1 to an R19 for property owned by Scott and Patricia Wyatt, 692 South Skylake Drive and 696 South Skylake Drive. Chairman Franson.
If I could just mention,
Please.
just before we leave the last topic, I've watched the audits of our city for a lot of years now, and I think our finance staff is to be commended for doing better and better on these audits. There used to be more findings, in other words, and
Yeah.
those have all been taken care of, so good job.
Thank you. I actually wanted also first, Wayne.
Sure.
I meant to excuse the mayor. He is off for a personal matter that was somewhat of an emergency. And so he hopefully will join us for the budget discussion. But I just wanted to note his absence, which he regrets. So thank you. Wayne.
We received from you all a request from Scott and Patricia Wyatt, who live on Skylake Drive, to rezone their property. It's a larger piece, and they are interested in putting a accessory building on the lot that their house is on. In order to do that and meet the setbacks, required them to rezone the house that their lot is on is R1-1, 1 acre. And the piece that's being cut off is going to purported to be rezoned as R119. And again, that part that they will use for the accessory then will be added to their existing lot. We had a public hearing with no comment from the public. We had a discussion and review of it and as a commission, and we'd recommend to you that that zone be approved with the division that they're making on their own lot. One lot would remain the R1 1 acre, and the other piece would be an R119. They, in the future, would potentially sell that second lot or sell it for another home, and it's sufficient size that it would accommodate another home on that particular size lot.
It's what, 3/4 of an acre?
It's about that. It's 0.72, I think, acres. So our recommendation to you would be to accept that rezone request from them. Any questions on that? It's a shop. It's going to be a rather large one, but the part how they're dividing it, it will accommodate a large area accessory building.
Did you guys review the topographical at all? The elevations of that new lot?
Not specifically, but that will be up to them to put that together when the time comes if they
Okay.
want to. I mean, there isn't any hesitancy that it would not accommodate a home.
So it could accommodate with all the setbacks and the driveway requirements and all of that?
Yes, the driveway will be redirected though to another road
Right,
because
that's
that
what I
will,
mean, off of
Mountain
Mountain Vale.
yes,
So it does meet all the requirements if, wherever they would want to put the road in.
correct.
And then the neighbors, did we have to send letters?
We
to the
did. We
neighbors
sent
and-
letters out to all the neighbors. Again, there was no feedback from anybody for or against yet, which is common.
Wonderful. Okay. Any other
Okay.
questions? Well, wonderful. Thank you, Wayne.
Sure. I'm next to you.
You're next as well. Perfect.
You're
Number
next
4.
couple.
Yeah.
We do like you right up here with us. Proposed ordinance amending City Code 10-11-16.
Final plat approval.
Okay, let's jump back. Yeah, especially you don't want me to skip your, thank
He's
you.
like going, "Hey." I had to
Number
listen to
three.
the audit report. I have
I'm
to.
really wanting to get through this. No, okay. Number three, final plat approval, Bellevue, subdivision Phase B. Wayne?
Yes, this is a request for a final plat going from a preliminary plat. Um, this has gone to our engineers. They've looked over it and made some comments as well as comments from us as a planning commission. And let me review the conditions for approval of this plat. Most of them are technical and part of the plat requirements, which they haven't provided to us yet, but there is no issue with any of these in getting them to us. One is there's a block that got overlooked for the planning commissioner sign off on the final plat, so they're going to be adding that. We're also removing a water authority approval block on the final plat and substituting that for Dominion Energy. Since the water approval is within the city, there's no separate entity that are providing water that they need to have approval for. And I might say that they do have sufficient number of water shares to accommodate the rest of the development that they have.
Is this just for the 6 lots that are numbered?
Correct.
Okay.
3 through 8.
Mhm.
1 and 2 are completed.
Yes.
They've developed those, so this is for the remainder of the property there.
Does 6 still include that other smaller parcel? This section here?
No, that's part of lot 6 there.
Okay, so 6
Together.
is part of that still.
Yes.
Okay.
There was
They've
just
done-
that drainage that went through the middle
Correct.
of that lot. Yeah, that we
Yep.
talked about last time.
Yes. They need to provide cost estimates for the work to be done on the final plat before they can record. They need to provide an AutoCAD file for the final plat pages. They need to provide a title report evidencing ownership of the property. Evidence of payment of the property taxes that they're current. A SWIP report and related details, which they don't have yet.
Glad we don't know any title.
Yes,
So even though all these things are still due, we can approve a final today
we
without
can. It won't be
having-
recorded until these things are provided. But they're not impacting, just one of the administrative things that are required before it's recorded.
I wanted to know on that number 5, where it has that kind of twisted driveway, is it coming in too close to the edge on the side where lot 6 is? Is that enough of a setback on the property line?
It is, according to our engineers. The engineers have reviewed that, and
It looks awfully
it
close.
said all the driveways meet the standards and setbacks that we have, including the slope for each of those lots. So we're relying upon them for that detail. There could be some issues with septic because of the slope
Oh, yeah.
of some of these
Talked about
lots.
that.
And a letter was written last year by Health Department from their review. And 3 of the lots may require an alternative septic system, but those will be part of an owner's development of that property. But we don't want to catch anybody by surprise, so we're asking them, they have a septic note on one of the plat pages, and we're asking them to reference the health department letter
Okay.
that they received and with some cautionary language in it.
So that people would know up front that an alternative septic system may need to be
May
put in
need
and
to
it's
be
a little
required.
bit more expensive,
Correct.
or it's in a different location.
Yep, yes. And we want them to put a note saying that the setbacks are governed by the R1-1 zoning. So it's clear to, again, somebody purchasing property, that the plat include that information so they're made aware of that. Carol Bell and her husband are here tonight, as well as Ken Berg, who is the engineer. If you have any technical questions or any questions about the plat, you're free to.
Just curious on the slope of the road, is that road going to be fairly steep or is it? I'm just thinking of our winter season.
And the cul-de-sac at the end is able to be plowed out.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, the potential for first.
Ken, do you want to respond to that?
I'm just curious. I mean, it's part of what we deal with up here. But
Yes, Ken Berg from Berg Civil Engineering. According to your requirements and specifications, at the cul-de-sac, it's 4%. Then it slopes down for a short stretch of like 12, and then for the majority of it, as it runs out to Valley View Drive, it's at 0.5%. So it may be one of the flattest roads in your fair city, at least for that short
one little
stretch.
stretch?
Well, it's about 300 feet.
Oh, that's,
So
yeah, okay.
you probably have other ones that are flat like that, but they're, yeah. So it meets within the requirements of the city. We've tried to make it so that you don't slide out into Valley View coming off that cul-de-sac. So they should be able to stop.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think I looked at in fact, I've made most of those minor edits that we've had. So based on how it goes tonight, we'll resubmit a majority of those things and start getting that final administrative paperwork to head towards a recorded plat.
So on that, on 6 being a larger one with that drainage in the middle, we just approved something with a smaller lot. Wayne, this is kind of to you. Would that smaller piece there ever be approved for a living quarters? I mean,
That's one lot there.
right, it's one lot now
Separated by
by the drainage,
by the
but I'm
drainage,
just,
but it won't be changed. In fact, they've done some redesigning of that so that that lot will not be much affected by that drainage channel.
okay, but it won't be brought in for another zone change to make that its own separate lot, is what
Well,
I'm
code
asking.
I don't think it's big enough.
It doesn't-
It doesn't seem like
It's
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 not
enough.
big enough or has enough frontage along the cul-de-sac.
Oh, that's
to
true.
Try to slice it off.
It's 1.37 acres, all
Right.
of 6, so they'd have to cut that. And that, what is that parcel there? Is that parcel .28 or something?
It's small.
It's, so,
The other problem, Carrie, is they have to be billed 30 feet from a natural drainage channel, and there wouldn't be a way to probably get a.
To get
building
that in there.
envelope in
Yeah.
And so the idea of that is that it will drain around on both sides of the road to go down to Valley View. Is that the idea?
Yep. Just preserving that historic path
Yeah.
for it
Yeah.
to continue.
Okay.
I think this looks good.
I think you answered a lot of what we had last time, so.
He's the expert. If you have questions for me, but yeah, I don't have any comments.
I just worry about that driveway on 5. That just seems weird to me.
That looks similar to my neighbor's.
I know,
think
that's
it'll
what
be
I was
fine.
thinking. That's why I said it could be a
It'll
problem.
be painful to pay for, but
Or to back.
I think
And is
it'll
it long
work.
enough that they'd
Yeah,
have to
don't
put
back
a
it up.
fire hydrant
Just need a
up in
camera.
the middle?
I'm gonna back a
I mean,
boat
like we
down
have,
there.
Yeah,
like some of the others who have
Couldn't
long
you just
driveways like
shorten
that
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 and
go
just-
up, that
Probably too
we were
steep.
required to put a fire hydrant closer to their house. Would that lot then need a fire hydrant up towards the top of that long driveway?
it's a good question, and I'm not sure. Our engineers, though, feel comfortable with the drawing the way it is. Depending kind of placement of the home may make a difference too. So if in the if when we get the plans for whoever's going to be billed there, if that is a problem, then they will have to put a fire hydrant closer to accommodate that, our ordinance.
'Cause it just reminds me of the house that we're thinking of,
Mhm.
they had to put a fire hydrant
Another fire hydrant there.
partway up.
Yeah, and that was also probably due to, well, we had different equipment at the time to service that type of a home and those types of distances and things. But typically that comes on the residential side instead of the subdivision side.
Yep.
So that would be the homeowner would have to do that calculation and find out their distance from a hydrant, right?
Yes.
So not at the plat level.
Nope.
There are some challenges that are going to be in developing this, as well as whenever homeowners, when the lot is purchased and for building a home, just not any home will fit on it. Then we've been told by our engineers that they feel that what they've been presented with this plat and their review of it, that there won't need to be any need for any variances, that it can accommodate and be built within the ordinances that we have.
Okay, because that is one of the things, and when a plat is approved, we are saying it's a buildable lot with our current ordinances, and so that has been taken care
That's correct. Yes.
Wonderful.
Any other questions on that? We, again, we didn't hold a public hearing for this. We did for the preliminary, which is required, but there was unanimous support for going forward and approving the final plat on this.
And we're putting this too, because on that second page, it's showing where possible septics would be, and we're putting that on the note that says that may not be the place for it because there might not be access behind the homes.
In so many words, the letter will be referenced in the note on the septic there to alert somebody that there may be issues that they will have to deal with for a septic system.
Is lot 3 super steep? Is that why the footprint is small? No. Lot 3,
Now, Ken, can you answer that?
sorry.
Yes, I mean, it's steep, but just to get access to, I mean, that's where the home needs to be built, is right there.
Okay.
If you push it further up on the hill, it kind of sticks out like sore.
Yeah, it just, because it's quite a large lot, but yet the footprint was small, that's what I was wondering.
Are you seeing this one? With the tokens?
Yeah, no, I haven't.
And we've asked our developers and continued into our city engineers to identify building envelopes where it can be built. So, and that's again to help a lot purchaser to know if they want to go outside that and they can accommodate that, okay. But that's something that we will check when the building permit comes in. And if that kind of home, whatever they want, is buildable on the lot where they're changing or enlarging the building envelope. So in the past, some of our plats have not had building envelopes on them, and we've run into problems that way. So we're insistent with the developer and our engineers to identify the building envelope. Now, if they have a smaller house, then they can put it inside that building envelope. But as soon as it starts to enlarge beyond that building envelope, then there are issues that we deal with at that time. And we've had a couple who've ended up selling a lot because they couldn't build the house that they wanted on the building envelope that was identified on the plat.
Right.
So,
I think my last question is, that drainage through lot 6, then that will be put in as part of the development. That's not the responsibility of whoever buys the lot.
correct. That's a natural channel now, and that will be enhanced if needed,
Right.
or
Rock line. or
accommodate,
something, Right.
correct, for
And that will be
our
done
drainage plan
prior
to the sale of
the
the
sale
lot.
of the lot. Yeah, that's all I wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Another expense that we didn't want, a potential property owner to say, what?
Yeah, of course, yes.
All right, any other questions?
Okay,
Okay, thank you, Wayne.
Yep.
Okay, next one. Now we're actually going to do number 4.
okay.
Proposed ordinance amending City Code 10-11-16 swimming pools.
The city pool? Are we gonna have a city pool?
Swimming pool.
I know.
Swimming
I'm
pool.
just,
We
I
have so
saw
much
that,
extra money in our
but I'm
budget.
just sitting there thinking, yeah, city pool.
That'd be nice, yes. We took a look at this, primarily with setback. And, held a public hearing. We, in a previous commission meeting that we had before the public hearing, we had a comment from a resident, recommending that setbacks be changed. As we researched it, we couldn't find really any good rationale that would justify the need to make the setbacks so distant. So that's what we looked at, and we had a unanimous decision from the Planning Commission to change the setbacks and to include the deck. So to make sure that the deck got included, that the deck wasn't against the property line or against the easement. That the
And no
deck-
hot tubs in the front yard.
Um,
It does say that.
It says that now. That's not been changed. But that is something that we're still looking at.
So this was mostly just a change to make sure that the decking was included in the
You don't want mine in
setbacks.
the front yard.
Correct.
That's the main purpose.
There was a large setback for swimming pool, and we've narrowed that down then for swimming pools,
Okay.
for setback. It still can't come forward from the plane of the home, so you not have a swimming pool in the front yard. So primarily side and rear yard setbacks with a swimming pool. Doesn't
Something-
change the building, just the swimming pool setbacks.
Something that I was surprised about on this is, I'm on my second hot tub, and I don't know a hot tub in the city that doesn't have electrical.
Right.
And so
But it says pool house.
but I'm going back to the permit procedure. I'm guilty of, I don't know if you've ever seen a permit for a hot tub in the city. Jody's shaking her head.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
I don't
Well,
remember
according to
seeing
this,
one.
it's an accessory building. Is that true?
No, it says
No.
any pool house or structure
A
that is
pool
housing.
house where they've got heating
Ah.
equipment,
Oh, that
Yeah,
makes me
I read
happy.
that too.
things
I-
like
I have
that.
a structure that houses my hot tub, but it's not
Yeah.
a building, but,
Yeah, mine's just on a
so
cement pad.
permits aren't required for that then.
For the
Correct.
little the accessory house, if you have all that extra equipment.
My
You have a
house
big
is
fancy
huge.
pool.
And that is
Okay.
considered an accessory building, and
Okay,
So-
that makes sense. then. All
And
right.
this only includes outdoor swimming pools, correct?
yes. Again, it's a setback issue that we're trying to
So your
address.
indoor pool is just fine. Don't worry about it.
10 years from now.
Or more.
Goals.
We'll see. Goals.
Okay.
Wishes are free. Construction just costs money. Okay.
That's right.
So any other questions on that? Okay. Very well. Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you. Okay, number 5, proposed resolution appointing an individual to serve as the Community Development Committee. Kirsten, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so the Community Development Committee met and recommended that Lori Thomas be voted on by the council
Appointed?
and appointed to replace Rod Munn, who resigned from our council for school and work.
Yeah. Did you know he's going to get his doctorate degree right now?
He's an overachiever.
I'm going,
I'm laughing because I was just thinking, why? We want him involved. He's so good.
Yeah.
he's doing a space
know.
project, a doctorate degree in a space program.
Yeah, but we're thrilled about Lori. I feel like I couldn't put together a better resume for somebody I feel is well experienced for what we need on the community development committee. So I'm excited about that.
I mean, she was born.
She was born here. She's city treasurer. She's on the planning commission. All of those things, like I said, I don't think I could have put together created a better
I
person.
agree.
And she's willing.
And exactly. So we better get this vote
Yeah,
before
yeah.
she could change her mind. No, it's
Yeah.
sweet.
It's good.
Yes, exactly. She's willing. So we're very grateful.
Yeah. Sounds
Any
good.
We all
questions?
know her well, so we don't have a lot of questions.
Great. Good.
No, that's an easy one. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Please. I do have a question for you, though. You keep sitting in the back, and then you have to walk all the time up here. I can save this seat right here in the front if you'd like.
He's trying
I'm
to
like
get
Wild
steps
Bill
in.
Hickok, I want my back to the wall.
Okay.
Like all law enforcement, right?
I understand, I understand the issue with Lori replacing Rod. I'd made a recommendation to Carrie for 2 planning commission members to be part of that committee. The other one would be Severin Johnson. Severin is really the only one that would be on that committee who's been through the general plan other than Lori.
And me.
Excuse me, that's what, other than Carrie. Lori hasn't.
Pointed at you.
Lori joined the planning commission after the last general plan was done. So I think she'll be an asset regardless. But I would like to recommend that the number of the committee, if it's locked into a particular number, be increased at least by 1 and to accommodate another planning commission member in form of Severin. And since he's been through that process before, I think he would be a good asset and help as well in that matter. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that.
I did read the letter to the
Yes.
to the committee, and it was, I don't know, Kirsten, do you want to address that? Yeah, why don't you address that?
We did discuss this as the committee. Like we mentioned, there was just one resignation at this time. There was conversation with Ted, who has done a lot of these RFP proposals before. He's here in the city, to consider the size of this actual committee, but our selection committee, he also suggested to have 2 from the planning commission on that. So we have not, as a committee, discussed that selection committee because we have not even put out the proposals yet. But we like the idea of having both of those individuals also involved in the selection process. But at this point, we have only discussed replacing Rod Munn because we just have that one opening on the committee.
Do we have a restriction on the number? In
It's
the
just been,
charter?
it's just been, yeah, in our charter, it says how many we have on there.
In the charter, it does say, but it says that there is room for a planning commission member and 1 other person to possibly serve.
Yeah.
I'd have to read it really quick.
So would we be able to, have we talked to Severin? He's willing?
The other option that we talked about in the committee meeting was this initial phase is starting the strategic plan part of it and kind of get that part started and then seeing when we would need to add more people. Because like Ted had told us, is you don't want to get bogged down so much with too many people that then it's not effective. And to get it started, maybe keeping it smaller and then kind of seeing where it goes and then coming back to the council and saying, yes, we do really want to add somebody. But on the selection committee, definitely having both.
And on the selection committee, we'll also have representatives from nearby cities who are willing to have somebody who's gone through this as well to kind of help us through that selection process. So we'll definitely be getting multiple opinions on the selection committee.
Okay. Ted? We get your insight here. Don't go too far. Seriously.
Well, I just want to clarify the discussion. So there's
2 different committees.
not even committees.
Yeah.
2 different things we were talking about. So first is when we talked in the committee, it's about putting together, and I'm going to call them a selection group, not even a committee. Just a group of people who will be involved in the RFP to review them and select the consulting firm. That was where we recommended, I think my recommendation was 3 from the Community Development Committee and 2 from the Planning Commission. That wouldn't be a committee, it'd just be a group
And
of
two
people
from the
together
outside.
for a specific purpose, and the 2 from the outside. Yeah, internally, I was talking about 3 from community development, 2 from planning commission. They would be involved in select because the half of the RFP is the general plan, which falls under the purview of the planning commission.
Of course.
So the recommendation was to bring together this group of people, not as a committee, just as a selection group to select the consultant. And then the committee, the community development committee, is a separate discussion, which I think is the recommendation of Lori to be on that community development committee.
So
That was kind of, it was like 2 for the selection group and then whatever the committee needed.
okay, so 1 for the primary committee, 1 for the committee, and 2 for the selection group. Is that
So I recommended 2 for the selection group. I didn't get too involved in what the committee, how, because I knew they needed to replace Rod.
Yeah.
I'm going to recommend at the point in the process where we're working on the RFP, or not, sorry,
General
working on
plan.
the actual general plan, that the entire planning commission be involved.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, it's their purview. Okay, so at this time, we would be voting on Lori. And do we need to be involved as a council for the people on this selection group?
I don't think
No.
so. That can be just a city function because it's not a committee. It's
Yeah.
really just a group of people brought together to pick a consultant firm.
And it would be under the direction of the chair. So,
Yeah. And that's where I was recommended at least 2 from the planning commission because be involved in that selection group.
I agree. Okay. So all you need from us today is a vote on Lori. Is that correct? Okay. Wonderful. Okay.
So I have a really quick question on the committee and the idea of Severin. So it's my understanding that we have a couple of members who aren't able to make the time that your committee meetings are being held. So is that true or not?
not so much, not yet.
Are you saying in regard to the community development committee's time?
Yes, correct.
Um,
When your meetings are being held.
I'm not aware of that being an issue. We don't, at this time, even have we have a few set dates for as far as the RFP proposal goes, but not really set dates on anything else quite yet. And so far, our committee's been able to work together to accommodate.
Well, I mean, the first committee meeting, we had, some technical difficulties with one person and then 2 people who were online voting members of the committee and no one else. So if people are not able to make your committee meetings, it might be helpful in looking at having Severin join the committee, right? So you've got more active involvement in your committee meetings.
I feel like I've been at all those meetings and I'm not sure I've
You've
had
had
the
a
same
quorum at every meeting.
perspective. Yeah, we've had a quorum at every meeting. And like I said, we've arranged the times around when the schedule works best for everybody on the committee.
Okay. I just wanted, that's the one thing I had noticed and wanted to bring that up as a question.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, is there any other questions? Yes, please, Wayne.
My thought with having Severin involved from the beginning is the whole goal of this is to put together a general plan. And the strategic planning will probably be part of that general plan. And I think it's important to have somebody in on a ground floor as things move in that direction to, rather than catch up, to have that knowledge that has been gathered during the process, so forth. So that was my thought of introducing him in the early stages of the process. So
And so in the selection group phase would meet that, your request?
yes, but beyond that.
And after, yes, okay.
Yes, yeah.
Well, part of it is that, yeah,
Well, so the way the RFP is written is the consulting firm has to work with city staff, planning commission, the community development group, and city council. So even if it's to where just say tonight Lori gets approved to be on the committee, doesn't mean Severin can't be involved or even the entire planning commission in the process of the strategic and general plan. That's not so much just a committee process, it's a city process. And it will include planning commission staff. I mean, the committee might be the ones that are kind of purviewed with it, but it will include, I think, everybody. And that's the way the RFP is written. So even if, I mean, if, you know, if once we review because the charter does say there's so many members, if we change the charter and several can be added, you know, that's great. It can be helpful to the committee. But even if it's not changed, the charter to where it can, it's you know, the way the RFP is written, it'll still involve not just the Community Development Committee, but also the Planning Commission, city staff, city council will all be involved in this entire process. And that's kind of the way the RFP got written.
We wrote it that way so that there's some checks and
Yeah.
balances along the way.
And so you're good?
Yep.
Perfect.
So
Hilliard, I did
are
say
the
to
dates okay in this,
Thank you.
in this proposal we see? Are the dates okay? I mean, tomorrow something's due.
Yeah, well, that's when we're gonna put, tonight
It's all good. It's
So
all-
that leads us to number 6, I guess, if you want me to talk to that, Ben.
Potentially. Do we want to move then?
Discussion of the
Sure.
proposed strategic plan.
Let's do that.
So for a while now, we've met, we have, you all got a copy of the RFP as well as the committee got a copy of the RFP. Everybody gave their opinions if they had one thing or another. Ted's been very involved in RFPs of this type for a long time, and so he took the lead on writing it. And we feel really good about what that is. And part of it is, you know, for the strategic plan, which is the kind of that first phase. Then there's some other things. It ends with strategic plan, branding, and general plan at the conclusion, right? And so the first part, though, is the RFP, the request for proposals. We have to have that approved, that request, tonight by the council. And then tomorrow, on those dates that you see, tomorrow is when Ted would post it on the website, the state website, so that everybody and anybody who is interested, it will pop up for them and they will be able to put in that request. So there's the date we post it, the date that it's due to us, and then that selection committee that the Community Development Committee selection group that the Community Development Committee puts together will then have that time to review them. There's a score sheet so that they're all judged equally.
And blind.
And won't be blind after all. It will just be open. And Ted felt like that would be a better deal. And so we'll have that scorecard. Everybody will vote on it, and then you just plug the numbers in, and whoever comes out on top is the one that is chosen. As Kirsten said, that we have asked the mayor of Payson and the mayor of Spanish Fork, and they have agreed to let us use one of their city employees on their dime to come, professional people who have just recently gone through this, and to assist the committee and the planning commission in the process, because they've both just really done this, and just in the selection process to show us best practices, make sure we're looking at things in the right way. And so that timeline has the day it goes out, then we're going to have a meeting so that any who are interested and want to come in person and get more information, an informational meeting, they can come, ask questions to the committee, ask questions to Ted, whatnot. Then they put those proposals in. The committee, the selection group, then has the time period to put that in. And then after that is done, we come back to the council in May to get approval for the person who won the RFP, so that then the mayor can sign the contract.
Excellent.
So that's kind of the process that will go in, and then we'll go back into the second process, which is actually the implementation of all the plan that was in the RFP.
Wonderful.
Is there any
Thank
other
you.
questions on that?
Yeah, I'm looking at budgeting stuff here, and of course, we'd have to have funds
We have
kind
funds.
of ready by May 14th. Is that grant funds that you're using?
Yes, all
Okay.
grant funds.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we have it's not a copay, but do we have a percentage that we have to put in from the city?
The match.
Match.
The match is kind of built into what we're doing.
Well, so yeah, the way it's a TPA grant. It's a planning grant that comes through UDOT.
Yeah.
And we requested 125,000. I think they ended up they will cover, I want to say it was 119 or 17,000 of that. And then we have to cover the rest, so 5 or 6,000. The way it works though in reality is they send you a check for the 119 and you just have to account for how you're using
We've had that
it.
check for a couple years now.
Oh,
And it's
Yeah.
just been sitting there waiting for us to use it. So
so
we have it.
a question to Wayne, did we pay for the plan in 2017? I don't remember any,
General plan.
I don't remember any costs. It was all volunteer then.
MAG.
We did, we
MAG
went
was-
through MAG.
Was the main entity that helped us with that, and that was on their dime.
Yeah.
So MAG is funded by the state, and they have planners then that can be used with cities if the cities want that. And we've used MAG several times on our general plans.
I just have a question, just a detail, but it says RFP informational meeting in the paragraph. It says Thursday, April 11th, but then down below in the bold, it says April 1st.
Oh, it's April 11th, so that's a typo, but.
So yeah, that's a typo that I noticed.
April Fools.
Yeah, it's the 11th.
April Fool.
Okay, I just saw
good-
that.
good
Yeah.
And,
Good
so I
catch.
checked it like 3 times, and I'm like, that's-
Yeah, so go down into that schedule of selection process, and
Yeah.
we'll change that to April 11th. Yes.
Quick question.
Uh-huh.
Are the RFPs, are you publicly opening them?
Tomorrow.
No, so proposals with consulting firms, you don't have to publicly open them. It's a little different than a bidding process like you do with contractors. So this is when you go through selecting a professional consultant, you can do a ranking and scoring.
And
So that's
we're
what this
doing.
is, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we'll be doing, is just ranking and scoring them based on all the criteria that is in here. And then they come for information just to get a feel for what the project really is, in addition to just the written word.
In fact, you don't even have to ask for costs in professional. 'Cause
Yep. Any other questions on that? So we would like to get that approved tonight so that Ted can put that proposal out. We've had 4 or 5 companies that requested that they be notified of the bid prior. So Ted will also send it to those people who have requested it prior, plus put it on the website. And then we'll have that meeting. There'll be due dates. Review is complete the week prior to the city council meeting on May 14th.
Do these people bidding on this RFP know how much we have in hand?
Yes,
That
it's
seems-
public. It's public
seems-
money.
So
That's-
don't know right now what we
Right.
we've listed the documents in the RFP that are available to them. So as they get this, they can request it. It's really what we have.
My
But-
concern is if they know how much we have to spend, they're going to spend it.
know how much we have to spend.
All
I
right.
thought that when the original grant was given and the amounts were posted with that,
That's
if I
stupid.
remember, because
That's
right
ridiculous.
after we got it, there were quite a few people who called and said, "Oh, I see you got the top grant in the whole state." And
Those that chase those people grants or things like that, I'm gonna guess this is.
right,
We're not, I mean, that's a plus of mine, right? They know how to have some, they can, write it so. However, if you don't have that spend, then you're gonna have a blind scope of these policies.
Right.
I suspect we're gonna get close.
That's all fishy to me, just to be honest with you. I mean, I've dealt a lot with RFPs in my career, and boy, it's ridiculous to tell somebody how much money you're willing to pay them before they, anyway, go on. I get it.
yeah, we don't
Okay.
tell them.
Information you got publishes when the grants are awarded,
Uh-huh.
but we don't tell them.
Yeah,
All
so if they
right.
want to find it, they can,
Well, and they will.
and then we don't
They're
have
not
to.
stupid,
But
you
we
know.
won't come out and just
Some
say.
will, some will.
And
Yeah.
of course, we have spent part of it already, so we don't have the full amount for them to even utilize. We already have spent some of it.
And I see there's a way out here if they're all too high and we don't have the budget, we aren't committed, so that's okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, it's
Wonderful.
it's a pretty good RFP, and we changed just a few things, but we feel good about what our purpose is and we're excited to get started.
Exactly. Thank you, Carrie.
Progress.
Any other? Yes, Wayne.
I think it's important to point out, money is not a factor. It's your score that is going to be looked at.
No.
Maybe it will be as high as what the grant is, or maybe less. But what they can provide and how they'll provide it, scoring process, that's what they'll be. That helps maybe a little bit calm you, Doral, in that process.
Now, if their score is the best, but they're over our budget, then they are also disqualified, correct? Or do we have to then talk to them and say, hey, can you get it down to X, Y, Z?
So, there are, I can't remember what I put in it, 4 or 5 areas that they are scored on. And each area is given so many points towards 100. Costs are one of those. Costs count for like 15 points or something like that. So they can get the proposal without having the lowest cost, which is fine if they have a better scope and their cost fits what we want. But if they have a lower cost, they'll get higher points for that category. So it's what this does, and this is the way I've done proposals for years and years and years. We try to get the best value. We don't like to get the cheapest, and we don't like to get the most expensive. We want the best value.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're looking at who's going to give us the best product at a good price. And that's kind of the way this RFP is written.
So that we know that they're actually going to do the job that we need to have done.
Exactly. Okay.
And only
But
those who,
once again, if they
qualified.
all are too high on costs, then the option is we can go back and rewrite the RFP, take out some of the scope that we've put in there and resend it again till we get it within the budget we want. But I suspect we'll see some within the budget. Maybe not all, but.
yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you. Is there any other questions?
And if you like math, we do a linear regression equation to evaluate their costs. See me later. I'll walk you through the whole process. It's exciting.
I like better that we just hired you to do that.
And I'll teach you how to cast out the 9s to prove your answer's right.
There you go.
Okay. All right.
Okay, then let's go to number 7. Discussion of large purchase requests or sale of surplus equipment. Is this you, Chris, or is this Brian? Who is this?
Ted, did you want to talk about Kubota or anything, or do we need to wait?
I think maybe you and I probably ought to vet out that loader first before we bring it to the council and make sure we're all good with everything.
Okay.
So I don't know that we have a lot today, but the truck
like
drove
this.
off, if you saw that.
Yeah, that was nice. So I don't think there's anything today, so maybe how much we could get for Brian Hutchings, but otherwise I think that's no big sales this time.
None for today.
None for today. But I'm getting excited for the next 1 or 2 coming up on the agenda.
I have a question on policy there. When it comes to a transaction of this nature, you know, we went through the bid process, all of that. How are these being paid for? Are they
Like how to pay
coming with
for the
a,
truck.
are they coming with a cashier's check? Are they coming with, how are they wiring the money and then we're receiving funds prior to vehicle departure? Okay.
Yeah, the public surplus department that we saw through receives the money and verifies the funds and then lets us know it can be released.
Wonderful.
So that's through the state then.
And no, it's actually not. It's public surplus that counties and state government agencies use, but it's not owned by any one particular government. It's throughout the whole United States. So the guy that purchased the truck was from New Mexico.
Oh, wow. The reason I ask is I was actually at the bank the other day and I was talking to my loan officer and he was saying that's the highest form of fraud they have these days is
Sure.
cashier's checks.
Really?
Cashier's checks are not the guaranteed funds that
They used to.
we've always thought they were.
They haven't been for a while.
So
It's because
when Crest set up public surplus for us, he set up our payment, how we accept payments, and we only accept a wire. So it's not actually, it's a wire to public surplus, and then public surplus will pay us.
Yes.
So on larger items, they only accept a wire, and smaller items, they can do other bank transfers and things like that. But for larger items, that's how it's set up right now, because
Email.
did have other people asking to have it done different ways, and I didn't allow them to do that.
Generally accepted, it's usually around 10,000 that's accepted for cashier's checks, anything.
That
above
might be where the limit is,
has to
but,
be a wire.
Wonderful.
but they
Okay.
verify the funds. And, I can't even print off a sales receipt until they have verified funds. And it even takes them or it takes them about a day to get those funds once they've been wired to them to actually verify it and have it in their thing before they'll release it to me, or they'll release it so I can turn it over.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Prior to us going into number 8, would we be able to take a quick recess of like 5 minutes, Jody? Is that
Sugar
legal?
levels and stretch for a sec.
Yeah, before we dive into this. Now,
Yes.
we are still, just so that everybody else here knows, you're welcome to stay with us. We'd love to have you for this wonderful discussion on the budget. Though we will probably not be getting to the council meeting probably for a while, just so you know. But like I said, you're welcome to stick around with us.
Ben,
Um,
is
I'm
there any
just giving you
reason,
fair warning.
is there any reason we couldn't jump to the council meeting, especially for those waiting for some votes and then come back to the work session? Is that improper?
Can we do that?
I'm
Jody?
okay with that.
Suspend the work meeting. Motion to suspend the work.
We want to suspend the work session, open the city council meeting, do your pledge,
Yeah.
your invocation, consent agenda, go on and do those items, and then you could come back to your work
And
session.
then suspend
Let's
the
do that
city
then.
council meeting and return to
To
the
the
work
work
session.
Okay,
And-
then we'll.
Well, you can even adjourn your city council meeting because you don't need to
go back in
have,
to vote on
you can
anything.
have a work session without having a city council meeting.
Would that work for you guys? Or would you rather hang out for another 3
Yeah,
hours?
because
with us?
everything on our business, everything to be voted on, we've already.
Hey,
The
Hey,
budget- the
now we're
budget
talking.
session-
Carol wants to hang out all night, I can tell, so.
So,
Okay,
all of our
then
voting,
we will-
voting this is- we've already talked about, so.
we have. So
I'll make a motion
you make a motion?
to suspend the work session and to start the city council meeting after the 5-minute break.
I'll second that.
Okay, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then we will start the city council meeting at 7. Let's just call it 7.
No, I am. I'm praying.
You're the pledge. Okay, I'd like to call this city council meeting to order. We will resume our work session to discuss the budget after this. But we would like to start with an invocation from Councilmember Malkovich and a pledge of allegiance from Councilmember Lunt.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this evening that we have been able to come together to discuss the business of our city. We're grateful for the beauty that surrounds us and our mountain and the people who live here, who make us, who make our community what it is. We're grateful for opportunities that we have to serve, and please bless us as we conduct this business, that we can do so in a respectful, dignified way, that we can be thoughtful in the policies that we approve and in the manner in which our city is run. We're grateful for those who continue to serve the city, both as in employees and as volunteers, to better facilitate the needs that we have in accomplishing the goals and the mission that we have for the city. Please bless us this night to have thy spirit to be with us. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll now open public comment. Public comments, hope if you can, please limit to 2 minutes or less. Comments submitted via email must be received before 3 p.m. on the day of the meeting to be included as part of the official note and record. Emailed comments will not be read aloud during the meeting, but will be distributed to the council and included in the official record. So is there anybody here who would like to say anything in public comment? Anybody online? No? Okay, then we will close the public comment and we will go into the consent agenda. Number 15 is February 27th, 2024, City Council meeting minutes, as well as March 12th, 2024, City Council meeting minutes, and March 14th, 2024, City Council meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the entire consent agenda.
Wonderful. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Okay, we are going to go into the business and discussion section. Number 18, ordinance 2024-12, changing the zoning classification of 692 South Skylake Drive and 696 South Skylake Drive from an R1 to an R19. Do I have a motion? This is for the Skylake property,
I have a
with-
discussion after the motion in the second.
Scott and Wyatt's property.
Due to the planning commission's recommendation, I'll make such a motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Did you have a comment?
Discussion, yeah. I just wanted to clarify because it says that we're changing the zoning classification for both of those from R1 to R19, but I thought that what you said was one would stay R1 and one would then go to R119. But the way it's written here, it says and both from R1 to R19. And so I think we should reword that motion.
I agree. I wasn't aware of that only one of them was being rezoned. So 696 will remain in R1, but 692 will be an R119.
So take the
Yeah.
696 out of there.
Since we'll be
So
here for
I-
a while tonight,
So
I'll
we
go
should
ahead.
Revise.
restate that then in the way that it should read.
I'll revise that motion to be 692 will remain R1, 696 will go to R19.
Opposite.
Opposite.
Okay, 696 stays R1 and 692 will go to R19.
Yes.
Thank
And I'll
you.
second that.
Perfect. Councilmember Malkovich.
Yes.
Councilmember Hilliard, yes. Councilmember Lunt.
Yes.
Councilmember Kinnison.
Yes.
Councilmember Hutchings.
Yes.
The motion passes. Okay, so number 19, final plat approval for the Bellevue subdivision Phase B.
I'll make a motion that we approve the subdivision Phase B for the Bellevue.
A second.
Do you want to do any contingencies?
Contingent on all of the things that,
Yes.
those
Yes.
conditions that Wayne stated earlier during the
Thank
work
you,
session.
yes. Contingent on all of those conditions
Okay.
being met.
Councilmember Hutchings.
Yes.
Councilmember Kinnison.
Yes.
Councilmember Lunt.
Yes.
Councilmember Hilliard, yes. Councilmember Malkovich.
Yes.
The motion passes.
It's been a few years, huh?
Thank you, guys. Okay, ordinance 2024-13, amending City Code 10-11-16 swimming pools.
I'll make a motion that we pass that.
Okay. Do I have a second?
We're looking at you because
Can
there's only so many of us.
Can I second it?
Yeah.
I'll second that then. Okay, Councilmember Malkovich.
Yes.
Councilmember Hilliard, yes. Councilmember Lunt.
Yes.
Councilmember Kinnison.
Yes.
Councilmember Hutchings.
Yes.
The motion passes. Resolution 2024-14, appointing an individual to the Community Development Committee.
I will make that motion to appoint Lori Thomas as a member of the Community Development Committee, replacing Rodman.
I'll second Carrie's motion.
I'll third it.
Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes.
Oppose Lori.
Thank you,
I make a
everyone.
motion that we close the city council meeting and return to the work session meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? We're heading back into our work session. Thank you so much for joining us. You didn't want to stay for the budget? Wonderful. Okay. Then we're going to go to number 8 of the work session, the 2025 fiscal year budget discussion. We'll turn that over to you, Chris. You might want to unmute, though.
That could have been a short meeting. Okay. So first, I apologize, as it was in previous years, I am not able to make this screen any bigger. So hopefully you guys will be able to see it. I'll go over a few columns here. But first, is there any?
As long as you just tell us where you're talking of, because we have it on our computers, so if you just
Okay.
kind of make sure that we are aware of where it is on our computer, that we're following along, because it is hard to see, and I wouldn't know which one we were on, which
Okay,
page.
perfect. Just first, any general questions or comments on this, or do you want me just to jump into it?
Just
Kind of
jump in.
jump in. We usually have questions as you go along.
Okay, let's go over the columns first. So the first column here is the 2022 year actual expenses. The next column is the 2023 actual expenses that we did. The 2024 is where we are basically up through today. The 2024 budget is what has been budgeted so far, which we will be changing coming up here in May or June. And then we're going to go into the year 2025. So 2025, obviously there's no actuals yet. Just by way of reminder for anybody still in the audience, the 2025 year will actually start July 1st and go through June 30th, 2025. I left the city council 0, so these are any changes that you guys propose over tonight or the next couple weeks. I'll put them in there. The next column is what the mayor is proposing today, and that's the paperwork that was submitted to you guys. My form here is going to look just a little bit different than yours, just because I've got even accounts with zeros that we haven't used for a while will show up on mine, where I was able to X them out of yours, try and clean up your account a little bit there. First and foremost, I do want to go ahead and share and talk about property taxes real quick. So last year, if you guys remember, there was a property tax rate increase. Find that screen here real quick. Summary. Okay, so on your screen here, this should be a copy of the tax rates that is from the state of Utah. Does that look? Should say like 0.003431. Do you guys see that?
Yep.
Fantastic. So with our tax rate this year, it's approximately bringing in $943,995 for property taxes. What the mayor's proposing is not to do what we did last year and raise property taxes. What he is going to be proposing is that we keep this tax rate level, meaning we're going to keep it at least the 3431. That will keep our basis coming in a little bit higher than the 943,000. Probably close to 965 is just the estimate right now, but it's keeping that rate level and not raising it like we did last year.
So
in a sense-
Chris, just a quick question. When we say keep it the same, so, because we've done this in the past, I remember, where we say, we'll keep the tax rate the same, but if the county comes back and gives us a lower tax rate, we still will have to have a truth in taxation because we're maintaining what we had previously.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that was
And so this could also translate into a property tax increase in some people's property taxes because we're keeping that rate level. So it's not like they're going to see a decrease or the same. If they paid 1,000 last year, it's not they're going to pay 1,000 this year. It really depends on what the county assessor comes back and assesses the homes. We do know last year many homes in Woodland Hills actually got a decrease in an assessment value, which brought in a little bit less revenue than what the people had paid before.
It was
Now let's
weird
just
though,
say,
because some people's were a lot more and then some people's were a lot less. It was pretty wonky.
it's kind of crazy.
As I looked
This,
at it.
for some odd reason, I don't think we're going to see this in Utah County this year. But let's just say the county sister came in and devalued all the homes in Woodland Hills. Well, that tax rate may automatically just go up higher than 3,431. Once again, I don't see that happening in Utah County, but you just never know. And maybe Janet, you know, if property rates are going up or down or staying stagnant.
Property values are still increasing, just not as quickly as they were before. They did come down a little bit last year, but now they're going back up because there's just not much on the market and there's so many people that need to buy a house.
And as values go up, actually property tax goes down a little. They try to, which is a weird formula that they use, but.
Yeah, the values are going up, so.
So just overall, back to our budget here on the mayor's proposed budget, he's proposing a 2.2165, 2,216,295 budget revenue and expenses zeroing us out here. And that's what we need per law, is to have a balanced budget. So as we talked about property taxes, if we keep it level, once again, this is the best guesstimate we can do right now, is about $965,000 versus $943,000. I don't know what that translates into personal property. I mean, each home or empty lots or anything like that at this point. And yes, Carrie, you're right. We would have to have a truth in taxation if we keep the tax rate level or we raise it up. So we would want to do that in August if the council votes to look at keeping the property tax level. Our unpaid prior year's taxes, we've had pretty good collection over 2022 and 2023 year. 2024 so far this year, it's dropped a little bit, but just estimating that we'll still be able to collect about 55,000 in prior year taxes. Motor vehicle fees, we're going to keep those level at an estimation of collecting $40,000. Sales tax and revenues, they are going up a little bit. We're trying to determine right now if that's from the campaign of pushing people more to buy online and those kind of things. We're working with the state tax commission to try and figure that out, but it's not as black and white as we would hope it would be to be able to figure that out. However, raising that about $20,000 over the previous year. The transportation tax, this was the one voted on several years ago. We get some taxes that deal with, I believe it's UTA, and some transient taxes for roads and these kind of things. Our electric and franchise tax, because SCSD did raise their rates and Questar raised their rates last year, by virtue of the 6% tax that's attached to that is going to go up. So estimated about $130,000. And cell phones just bringing it more in line with about $4,000 for landlines and cell phone tax. Any question on general taxes? Okay, licenses and permits, just going to kind of keep them the same from last year to this year. Building permits, they're just kind of a hit and miss, but the building permits are, the revenue comes in, the expenses go out, it balances itself out. Intergovernmental revenue, could raise the Class C road allocation. This is the gas tax, and we get paid when we go to the pumps and we pay that gas tax, or if you have an electric car and you've got to pay it once a year, then based on the miles of roads we have, we get a certain percentage. So that's really kind of spread out over the state in a more equitable manner. Now they might have local sales tax that Salt Lake gets and that kind of stuff. That's a little different, but road taxes spread out per paved road and then unpaved roads like gravel and those kind of things. I think we're about 15 miles, somewhere right around there. Going to keep the liquor allotment. That's just what we get for liquor tax. That typically goes to do things in parks. And then sometimes you get a little grant for another parks grant also.
Chris, on the liquor and the parks grants, how come the previous years are all saying zero?
So we put these in each year. We'll get the Utah County. Jody, do you remember why we didn't get the Utah County tax last year? I can't remember why. But we'll apply for it each year. Jody fills out the paperwork for us and gets that for us. I couldn't tell you why we didn't get it last year.
Okay, yeah, it's all zeros except for last year's budget and this year's budget, so I'm just curious.
Zoning and subdivision fees, just kind of a guesstimation on what we've done in previous years. The SWIP, it's again based off a building, that's an in and out. We collect it and it goes right back out to the engineering firm that inspects the SWIP. Fire department services, these typically are when we go out, the Woodland Hills goes out and helps on, so our local volunteers go out and help with fires, maybe up Spanish Fork Canyon, Payson Canyon, something like that. Or if they get called out to go up to Harriman or something like that, there'll be some charges that we can bill the state and the state will pay us for. The fuel reduction, this next one is the one that we've hired 3 people the past couple of years to come in the city, clean up brush and those kind of things. But then also we get put on the EMAC or IROC, which is a federal system that puts our fire truck on there, saying that we will rent our fire truck out and our personnel to go fight fires. They've been to Idaho and Montana, and I don't know if they've been California, Oregon. They've been all over. It's been a good thing for the city. Last year was slow. We were only out for 1 fire total last year for 2 weeks, but that still brought in nearly $80,000.
So last year, even though they didn't really go out much, it brought in 80,000, but we budgeted how much last year?
We
I'm
budgeted.
just looking.
Last year, I think we budgeted about 150 also.
150. So we lost money last year on that program, but we still feel that it's worthwhile to continue doing. And will we have 3 people to go out again?
We're trying to hire.
So we only need 2 people now to really technically go out. And the previous year, the first year we did this, we billed $199,000. So we still have some carryover that we have from the first year.
Okay.
Craig had made the proposal to city council, to the mayor, that we take this at least 3 years when Craig was fire chief, and let's just see how it goes. So after we get through this year, we can take a closer look and see
We
how it goes.
also made a little bit of money from clearing some of the residents' property.
Right.
Sorry, is somebody talking?
That was Ted,
Oh,
but
Ted.
it's okay.
Sorry, I was just clarifying that the 150 is what we were hoping for in revenue, but that wasn't what the actual cost of the crew was last year.
No, and I'll go down, I'll show you when we get the expenses.
Right.
Sanitation is going to take that up a little bit because we have closed homes over the past couple of years from 150 to 160. Fiber revenue, that's just, once again, it's a hit and miss now with how many residents we have coming. We're just about done with the loan that people had utilized from the city to put the fiber in and install at their house.
Hey, Chris, actually, can we jump back to the sanitation garbage fees?
Yes.
I know in past years we have been subsidizing that. Is this past year though, were we at basically a wash there or slightly ahead, or were we also still subsidizing?
Good question. I think that was just voted on within the past 3 months to raise those fees, or 4 months, if I remember right.
Yeah. Okay. So
we'll,
it's reflected in 2025. We'll see
yeah,
that.
we'll take it out through June and see how it goes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Nothing else exciting on this. If you guys have any questions, we can jump down to interest earnings. So we budgeted $70,000 that we were going to earn interest this year, but because when the rates go up for homes and banks, we also start earning more interest. So instead of the $70,000 we originally budgeted this year, we're going to be closer to about $150,000 estimation for next year. Now that can change should we get a different president in there or something happens with the rates. Just Congress, president, there's so many things that can affect this. And so,
Crash.
I'm sorry?
Stock market, all those things can
Yeah.
affect, yeah.
So we're going to leave it there about 150,000 and see if that changes drastically. We'll just need to take a look at it and see how to adjust. But as of right now, the forecasts that we're seeing are looking like it's going to still be up a little bit next year.
Isn't the interest on fiber about to come to an end? Shouldn't everyone's fiber be paid off?
Yes, sorry. The fiber will be, but we'll still have the fiber line up here for the installs for the new homeowners that come in and those kind of things.
Okay.
So that's the total is $2.216 million. Let's talk about expenses. Unless there's any questions on revenues. Okay, expenses, keeping pretty much, unless you guys are gonna vote yourselves raises, keeping the mayor and council wages the same. The big difference here is adding back in some council discretionary that was taken off years ago. Not adding too much in there, but $300. So that's the big difference there. There's still money in there for travel for the conferences and those kind of things in the 5,000 here for next April's meeting. not
When
this
it
one.
says council travel, is that including the expense to register for our conference, or is it actually that we are going to get paid gas money to go to St. George?
This is just, yeah, if you guys want to up that in your budget,
No, I'm just, because it says travel, so I was thinking, oh, there's more travel expenses. We've always paid our own gas and our own food and our own everything, other than the hotel and the thing. So I was just wondering when you said we upped it a little.
That's what we get that big salary for, Carrie.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Carrie,
It's really
I'm
not
gonna
a
cover-
salary, it's a stipend.
I'm gonna cover my own gas this year, so I think you guys are okay covering it too.
Oh, such a sacrifice,
Oh, way to
Chris.
go, Chris.
I'm just a team player, guys.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's gonna walk there.
Okay, let's talk about admin salaries and wages. This basically covers Jody's and my salary. The reason it was higher last year is because of the lawsuits and a lot of overtime that poor Jody was having to put in. And then we didn't know at that time last year if we were gonna hire an assistant city recorder. And so this year it's being proposed not to have assistant city recorder and to, so that's gonna lower the rates down. So 182,000 instead of 193,000. Then the associated benefits with that. Retirement is also going down, mainly because of the audits that we've had with the Utah retirement systems over the past, many years ago, we had some audits and we were just trying to make up some employee missed retirement. That is going down drastically this year because we've made everything up, which is nice. Our audit, I'm just gonna put a little bit extra in that. It was 12,200 this year. Gonna put 13,000 in for next year. We don't have a quote yet what it's gonna cost. The attorney. This is our local attorney that we pay. This is not the one that runs through the trust. We still have roughly $25,000. I'm not sure how much we can talk about it. I don't know what's public or what's not, but it looks like we're still gonna have some legal fees coming up. No comments, we'll keep going. Okay. Professional services, this deals with just engineering that deals with general government, not with roads and those kind of things. And we've been between 25 to 30,000 the past couple of years. Elections, Jody, I don't know if you've heard about the elections that's coming up here. I just almost doubled it just to be safe.
Probably a good idea. She left, but
Oh,
yeah, there might be, especially depending on if, this year it's state and county races, but we still have.
Will we have a primary then?
Yeah, we'll still have a primary because there's no municipal race this year. All the races are county and state and federal races. So we will be involved in a primary and then we'll go.
But we won't have to pay for any of
But
it.
we shouldn't have to pay for
So
any of that.
we don't
because it
need
goes to everybody.
$4,000 in elections this year.
Nope.
so I'm gonna zero that out. Actually, I'm gonna put
Please.
4,000 there.
But we will have the following June.
Yeah, and there's no more ranked choice. They did away with it, so.
No, they didn't.
They didn't?
They didn't vote, they didn't change that, but, because that's still a local decision. We would vote to not do it.
I vote we don't.
I thought it got kicked out of the state, no?
I thought
It almost did at the very end, and then they said, nope, let's let locals choose.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so am I seeing the consensus is to zero the elections out for the city council portion?
But we'll need to,
Need
but
money in
like she
June.
said, before next June, though, we would,
June of 2020. Let's see,
Five.
5.
we would still need
We
we'd probably do a primary.
So if we vote down ranked choice, are we gonna need more?
No, we'll just need 2,000, and then in that budget next year, we'll need to add another 2,000 for the second half of that 4,000 payment, right?
So it can't go
Correct.
down all the
So
way
it
to
just needs to
zero.
go to 2,000, Chris.
Okay, it was about 2,500 before. Is it okay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
that's fine.
Okay,
The other part, we can just switch over to council discretionary.
let's keep going and see where we end up, because now we're 1,500 in the positive.
Or a raise.
Or fire radio.
We could
Travel.
We could get travel all the way to Fillmore.
Okay, keeping insurance the same, travel for Jody. Let's see, the next one is repairs to city facilities. I've noticed, I've come up,
Is that one?
this is repairs to the city
Oh.
center.
Next page.
Yeah, next page for us.
Okay, sorry. I come up about every 6 weeks. I'm starting to, where I'm not there, I'm starting to see things. And now that Ted's there, people are starting to see little things. And the mayor thinks we need to start fixing up the place a little bit so it's not getting so run down. I understand your chairs are peeling.
No, we stole the
these.
ones from the fire department.
Oh, good for you. Good for you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
But the fire department might want some new chairs.
Or we could give these ones back. And
How
get-
about if the city buys them from the fire department?
How about we just
I think
borrow them
we
and
own
save
them.
money going back and forth?
Perfect. So the 20,000s to do repairs on things are falling off, the heat tape, if something needs to be painted, any additional landscaping outside that needs to.
Better to fix.
Gutter.
Gutters.
Wait, that's this year's budget.
And we've got a couple
Oh,
sheds at the front that are falling off. There is some of the
Pest and.
Shutters,
pest
sorry.
spray.
The
We
shutters.
don't have any shingles in this building.
The shutters
Wasp,
are
yeah,
falling
for the
off at the
park.
front.
Here in the fall.
The
And then
front mat needs to probably go and get a new one
Yes, please.
Yep.
and
Could
maybe
we,
some
yeah,
runners.
could we fix the front door?
Front
That's
door.
also on our agenda as well.
That's our safety measure. What do you mean?
Yeah.
That's the fresh air.
Sometimes it's gonna take them a little while to get in the door.
I
We
think
can hide.
I think Jody and Lori have both expressed
Also, the
desire to
toilet
fix
seats
the
are
front
broken.
door because they spend half their day standing up and letting people in.
For whatever reason, people don't see that.
I mean,
little
could we
sign.
afford like a new toilet seat? They're broken in the.
Yeah. And the women's, that's been broken forever.
We can do duct tape.
Duct tape. We can buy
let's-
more duct tape.
Ted, can we do that? Can we order a new toilet seat for these ladies?
So this year we still have
It's been
about
broken for a long
12,000
time.
left.
Not in the budget, sorry.
Totally in the
Maybe
budget.
try again next year.
we could
You
probably
watch
find
the
a
voice
used one
toilet,
at the
it's gonna be
dump.
gone.
Yeah.
You know, I forget
I've
that
got
it's
one you can
broken,
have.
and then all of a sudden it goes. thunk.
I know, exactly.
I've got an extra one at home.
Chris,
I
can
will-
we reallocate those election funds to a female toilet seat?
Just go steal the one out of the guy's bathroom, girls.
Yeah.
We'll get
We
with
still have about
the
12,000 left
library.
this year.
Because we're working
The
on
first
right
time I
now.
thought I broke it back in the day.
We should make them both hers anyway, right?
No.
No,
We might have to. It depends on.
no.
Yeah.
Go.
I'm surprised it
There's
has.
a law there.
Sorry.
Okay, we've digressed. All right.
You opened a can of worms there.
Yeah, what number are we on now?
I'm adding a new line called toilet seats. So
A line item, women's toilet
Yeah.
seats.
now, anyways, there's still 12,000 left this year. You can buy new toilet seats, somebody.
And if we buy them through the federal government, they'll be like 15,000.
That's right.
Let's not do that.
The rest, all the way down to this section, is the same as last year, or is this current year we're in. So kind of leaving that all the same. I'm afraid to ask if there's any more questions.
No, but I think if Trump wins, that toilet seat will be gold.
That's that's true. Wayne, are you still there?
Why is he still waiving his salary?
He's still waiving the salary. So we do put 1,500 in there for expenses this year. He did get a new laptop at $1,000, so that was very good that we were able to get him a new laptop.
Perfect.
Building expenses. So some of this is going to change by virtue of Ted's position versus what Corbett was doing before. So some of these numbers,
Where are we at?
we're on building now.
Building
41.
4190, bottom of
4190.
page 4.
Oh, I skipped ahead to 5 because you were talking about building official and it was on the next page. So,
Oh, sorry.
okay, so we're going back.
So the biggest difference is the site plan review. Ted, are you doing a lot of site plan reviews?
Yes,
Okay, well, we're just gonna have to watch that and see. There's ways to adjust it within the budget. I've just moved it around a little bit. But we've got him on salary, and so those are kind of set, and that's what this number's based off of. That really is the biggest change from this current year to next year. Ordinance enforcement. So this is where we do pay Wayne to do the ordinance enforcement stuff, but he's not getting paid for any planning commission. And so this is Wayne's salary right there for that, which is an ultimate steal for the city. Bless Wayne for continuing really to volunteer to doing that.
Well, yeah, he needs to be paid more for that job.
Yeah.
Had to,
Do we want to make a change there?
no, it's okay.
It's not fair as it is.
No.
Yeah.
Wayne, we should talk.
Wayne, should we
It's-
get you a raise?
It's good. It's good.
Yeah. The mayor does have a $2,000 raise in there for you, so it went from 8,000 to 10,000, but it's even embarrassing to talk about. So, police services, we don't have the new contract, so just estimating 115,000 from 108,000.
And
And then
that we put on the side, we put Detson on there, right?
Oh, as he has to stay.
Just making sure that it's on paper.
I mean,
Yeah,
we
well,
kind of
but-
got him guaranteed last year. That's you're asking is, can we do that again?
Yeah.
Well, Dudson told me the other night that he got a coin, so he's here forever.
Okay, cool.
Told me he was retiring from here, so.
So one thing I'd like to,
He's stuck.
I'd like to talk about here is, and it came up during our Meet the Candidates night, and then a couple of people that talked to me. I really think our police services ought to kind of stay almost as a percentage of our budget, so that as we increase in size, we're increasing our police, so we can maintain this as one. I guess this is, still, where we're at, but I just think as we move forward in the future, we look at increasing this as we increase in size. As we get more residents, we're going to need more policing.
Yeah, we're about 75% coverage right now. To go to 100%, it kind of jumped us up a bit because of the benefits and the training and stuff, but I think it was about
Yeah.
145,000-ish, 150,000. So
In this line item, it says here, Chris, that there's county attorney services. What are those for?
So like if there's a fighting on the traffic ticket, or we have a burglary or something like that, we don't
Justice
utilize
court.
our attorneys for that.
Gotcha. Okay.
The next, who sits on the 911 dispatch now?
Me?
Hey, have you gotten a budget for this year?
You know what? They are raising our rate this year. I have that information here somewhere.
If you can find that,
Chris?
Say that
I
again,
bumped
Chris?
20 grand or $5,000 to 20,000. Just as an estimate. They've been raising every year, and so I just don't know.
And they didn't take anything off for not doing our sirens.
Well, they didn't. Yeah. Thank you very much.
I don't think they added anything for doing
They
them.
didn't.
So what did I see here? I was surprised it went up. It's going to go up more than I
Probably need to get that to Chris.
believed
He
that.
knows, yeah.
Well, they're still working on it. I'll have a better one this next month.
So I put 20,000 as a placeholder. This year we have 15,000. They don't bill us till April-ish, so that's
Okay.
not spent yet.
Yeah, our rates, I've looked at the past couple of years, they've really gone up as our calls have increased. That's to be expected, so that's why.
Okay, are we good to
Okay.
go? Okay.
I'll get that to you, Chris.
Okay, thanks, Daryl. Fire wages, gonna keep that level from year to year. There's been a little bit of a decrease in personnel there, but yeah, there's a training officer, and we pay about 6,000 a year for Ted's salary out of that also. And then the fire bonuses at the end of the calendar
So-
year.
I would like to propose an increase for our EMS captain and our training officer, just because of the amount of time that they're having to put in. This has stayed level for probably over a decade.
Yeah, let's
and I
pause on
think-
the EMS for now, but fire training officers, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, the amount of stuff he's gone through doing the wildland certification with the state and everything else has just been, I mean, he's been putting in massive amounts of time to do that and
Talking
setting
about
up
John?
new, yeah, John. And this has stayed level for a long time, so I'm kind of proposing that we look at doing an increase here to the council and to
So
the mayor.
4 or 5 years ago, it was a free position, and then we put it at 700, and then I think it went to 1,500, and it's been 1,500 for 3 or 4 years right now, just kind of history.
And we
Well,
have,
I was looking at EMS captain. It's been over a decade with the same.
Oh, yeah,
Dollar.
yeah, let's pause on EMS because we'll get down to that one.
Yeah. So that's up for discussion, but that's just my.
I mean,
My
could we,
2
the training for John, like, could we bump it to 2? We have $2,000.
Well, so he's getting, so is he doing the EMS training too? Because he's getting $3,000.
yeah, because he gets both.
Oh,
Is that 3,000
He
per
gets
year?
3,000.
Yeah,
So he's at the same hourly rate as us?
I think
Not 10
these
cents?
recommendations ought to come from our chief personally. Ted, I just think that's more
Yeah,
in
that
your,
would-
they can give you feedback, but I think that ought to be your discretion.
Yeah, so I've already talked to Chris about the EMS captain. We'll probably get that when we get to the EMS section of it, about that one. I did talk to John as well, and suggested we see where we end up at kind of at the end of this year, but, wanted to look at how we were ending up in our salaries this year. And maybe is we have this discussion tonight. This was about a week ago. I talked to John, and he was good either way, whether we talk about it now, which is probably more appropriate, but I said, let's see where our budget's at, and then we'll talk to the council and see what they suggest. But you're right. I mean, those have stayed level. For some reason, I was thinking the training officer was higher than that, though.
well, so like I said, he's getting $115 per paycheck times 26 paychecks.
Okay.
And
So
if he's not
yeah.
doing EMS, then it's just getting $3,000.
Yeah. So
And was Val getting that the same?
Val was getting, yes.
Okay, because John is Val's replacement in every way.
Okay.
Just saying.
yeah, and I mean, I think it would be appropriate to discuss some increase for John. He does put a lot of time in, and I think on our actuals, when you look at some of our actuals, I think we could, even without raising the budget, still increase him by a couple $1,000s, say to
Right.
5.
I agree.
Yeah, and
So
that would,
at
we
that
wouldn't have to
point-
change our budget to do that.
At that point, that would be discussion with the fire chief and the mayor. Because there would be no budget implications with the 35,000 already there.
That's fair. I just wanted to bring it up because I feel that the amount of work going in is astronomical.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have, just you're aware, Brent, I've had those discussions with both John and Rachel. We've been talking about it.
Okay.
So you are going to propose then something before we adopt this of an increase, or something that we're going to put on here for both those 2 positions?
Yeah, because I don't think it's going to change our budget at all. Because I think we can fit it within what we've budgeted. Same with EMS. I did talk.
You just
I
want to
reviewed-
move it in the budget from another place, is what you're saying.
No, it's within the wages budget. I think we've got enough to even give an increase to John without having to change the wages budget.
Okay. Okay.
And I already reviewed it with, was a week or so ago, Chris and I got together and we reviewed the EMS wages and felt like we could also do an increase there without changing the wages budget.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense then.
Yeah, the next biggest thing in fire is equipment this year was budgeted at 32,000, but with the radios and some of the other things that are coming up, putting another 10,000 in there. And I assume, Ted, that's for the radios, is what that extra amount is for?
Yeah, we need to start looking at. Hold up. That was loud. So with the change that Central is making to the new dispatch system, our radios in a few years are going to be obsolete. And so we have to start upgrading our radios to newer radios. And Craig bought a few before he left. We're buying a few more this year with some budget we had left over. And we just kind of need to stay on top of that over the next few years to get all our radios replaced. So yeah, looking at replacing radios for the next little while.
Looking at taking back the fire appreciation budget, just a couple $100. And then the next biggest thing is the last one, fire capital outlay. This is the cost for the new fire truck payment and then estimated cost for the new fire chief's truck, about 66,000. So we had been budgeting, putting that money in savings, but now it's going to go actually to make the payments.
Chris, I'd like to go back to emergency management. I saw that you didn't allocate any funds for that. It was my understanding that we were going to find a
So down here.
replace on 4220. Wait, 605.
Yeah, it's 4227 now.
Oh, okay. But anyways, so it was my understanding that we're going to be looking for a replacement of somebody, and I would like to be able to put something in there as a stipend for whoever it will be as emergency manager, and also
There is one if you go look at 4.
Yeah, go to 4227. It's under its whole separate line item now. It's no longer in the
okay.
fire.
Okay, I see. So it's over there, and that would be a stipend for the year. Do we have a place then for, if they were going to attend the conferences and the dues to join the Utah Emergency Management Association?
So right now, the 2,000 just for equipment and supplies, we have 0 for wages and 0 for FICA. So that would need to be something that council would need to determine how much.
Yeah, that's what I was basically saying, is that on the other one is that this is just for supplies. So I think we do need to put, if that really is our goal, to find someone to replace Ben now, and to go to all the meetings, because there's several meetings a week that person would go to, plus the trainings and the conferences. And so I think it needs to have a stipend and then the allocation for the conferences and then the dues for the Utah Emergency Management Association included. So if you could make a note of that and find where that would come from, or which line we put that stuff in.
Well, let's finish fuel reduction. We'll get down to emergency management in a second, and then maybe you can think of how much a stipend you would be thinking that we should put in there.
Okay, so we're basically not using the 2220 line that's up above in fire, and we just are using it down below.
Correct.
It got called out
the
into
other.
its own column.
Yep.
It's a category now.
Okay, so we
Okay.
talked.
You're good, Chris. Go.
Okay, we talked about fire fuel reduction. We put 150,000 revenue up above, and we're projecting $116,000 expenses. Once again, this is floating. We try and keep some money for the city coffers because they do use the city truck, wear and tear, and that kind of stuff. So we want to try and keep about $25,000 a year just to go back into the city budget because the residents pay for the truck, and the city should make some money off of it. So 150 with $116,000 in expenses. EMS, and what Ted was talking about earlier, it's got a budget of 12,500 for salaries, but and that pays mostly for the EMT captain's pay, and then the bonuses given at the end of the calendar year. And then Ted, I guess you can talk with the mayor about how much you would want to give the EMT captain a raise. The other thing is the EMTs are asking for about 2,000 more for supplies. With their call volume, it's pretty cheap money, $2,000 for the call volume. So that's very reasonable. Otherwise, that's it for EMTs. Animal control, who's over animal control right now?
Lee, Carrie?
Any news on their budget this year?
No, I don't think I saw anything yet.
Okay.
We'll have a meeting and she'll go over it.
Yeah, we haven't gone over that.
It's probably in the next couple weeks, Chris.
I'll just leave it 7,000, what it is this current year. Okay, then emergency management. So we did put a place for wages there and for the FICA and for supplies. So any recommendations on what you'd want to put for a salary?
I think that if we're going to get anyone who has some training and who will be willing to go to all of the meetings, we should have a stipend of some sort to, just like we have with the other two, the EMS and the fire chief, something that's in there that gives them incentive to want to do that job. And then again, to be able to attend the conferences, there's a couple a year, and additional trainings that they have, and the dues to the UEMA.
So do you have a dollar amount in mind?
No, I just wrote that down that I can look and see how much the dues are, and the conferences, and the training, and then the stipend.
I wonder if that would fit under the 2,000 that's already there. Would you guys be okay if I put a placeholder in here? Or do you want to leave it 0?
Yeah, you can leave a placeholder there.
Yeah, it actually doesn't even come into effect unless I can find somebody who's interested, so until then.
So do you want to put like 500 placeholder?
No, I'll keep doing it.
Yeah, because there's a
My
big
title
conference
is-
coming up. There's a big conference in St. George in May. There's the UEMA dues, which I totally forgot to ask them to send the invoice to the city. I thought that they automatically would have, because it's the city who is joining, not the person. And then some of the training, most of the training, I mean, I paid for some out of my own pocket, so I'm not sure how much the training would be. And then again, if we find somebody, I think that we should have a stipend for the time that they spend.
Okay, I just put 500 in there for now. I mean, that if you want more, we can do more, but
500 for the stipend, and then 2,000 for the other stuff.
yep.
Yeah.
Okay, street wages. So Ted's wages broken up in like 6 different categories. 50% of his comes out of the water, and then a chunk comes out of roads and site plans and planning and all those kind of things. So a chunk of this is going to go to Ted's salary, but a chunk is also for Zach and some of those other employees that we may have in the summertime that help do roads kind of maintenance, and then the FICA and retirement to go with it. Engineering fees that are associated with roads, just estimating 30,000. Let's see, keep going down. Here's kind of what's exciting. So the roads this year, we have $100,000 budgeted, but we've only spent 41,000. But we also have 100,000 in Class C maintenance, and we spent 0. In talking with Ted, we're probably not going to get much done before June 30th. So in addition to the budget we're talking about here, we're also going to have carryover from this year to next year, possibly to the tune of $120,000 to $150,000. So next year's road budget, starting July 1, is going to have a pretty healthy starting balance that we can spend on. And this does not include Loafer Drive. This is just, you know, when we get the road study back, Ted can start prioritizing with the council and see what you guys want to do. But we're gonna have a pretty healthy fund to be able to do this, which is fantastic.
I sent Ted a pretty healthy list of patches that are needed, so we should be okay.
Otherwise, we're keeping a lot of this
Yeah.
the same. I am projecting that we're gonna bring in 105,000 in Class C road funds and spend the whole 105,000. So that's where that comes from. So roads is kind of exciting for this coming up year in July. I think you guys will start seeing some pretty good improvements in July, August, September, October before the snows fly again.
I really like that because I feel like we've neglected our roads for a long time.
Yeah. We're projecting 160,000 coming in for revenues for trash and putting out 145,000. So there's a little bit of a profit to cover some of the city employees, the billing, that kind of stuff there. Snowplow wages. The mayor is proposing that we take a 5% raise for city employees and also for snowplow wages. The snowplow drivers have not had a raise in many years. And so this would take somebody who's driving a service truck from $20 an hour to $21.25 an hour. Somebody's driving the mid-sized truck from $25 an hour to $26 an hour. And now we've gotten rid of Big Orange, and so that got rid of the $35 an hour large truck payroll, hourly wage.
So we'll just have the two wages for a snowplow.
Well, but if you get that backhoe, who's gonna
Yeah,
drive?
I was gonna mention that if we get something for widening the roads, we might want to look at a wage for that because we want really good people on that.
I think
Is that, I don't think you have to have a CDL for that though, right?
No CDL.
I was just trying to tie it into something. So that's something that we'll need to look at then.
Yeah, I think mid-size.
that was just a question I had because I know
And
that.
then Mayor's proposing to raise David Stone's up. He's making $25 an hour, which he's made for years, and giving him a 5% also. That brings it to 26.
I
keeping
will
50
take that down on for in behalf of him because I do not want the problems that go with it. So
Tom will send it to mayor at woodlandhills-ut.gov. Salt and snow, salt removal, just keeping it 50. I don't know how much salt's still in the shed down there.
Chris, when you and I talked last, there is probably 10% that has been expended since our last conversation.
Okay. So we might have a
Already have the things.
otherwise, keeping everything level from the current year.
So I don't know if I mean, hopefully we won't see lots of repairs and maintenance, but where we're now hiring it out. Granted, it's Craig that's doing almost all of it, but I'm wondering if we ought to add some to that, especially as that service truck starts to wear. You know, I've already done repairs on them and blades and everything else. So I'm wondering if the 10,000 needs to be bumped up a bit more.
So we kind of split that a little bit between the snow plowing, water, and roads, right here.
We'll all be using the truck, so you can split it between the three different.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense, but I just think not maintaining what we had this year. I think we might want to look at increasing it from this year's numbers.
Ted, do we know how much those blades cost?
The ones we're currently using are about $3,000 a piece, or for the set.
Yeah.
There is some, I mean, I think there's going to be some, we do hire out a lot of our maintenance now with the new trucks coming.
They have service agreements.
We'll keep them serviced. So we'll have the utility truck. I mean, hopefully we're not repairing a lot of hydraulic hoses and that kind of stuff like we have been doing, but, I'm looking at an option right now that will allow us to do something less expensive than those $3,000 tungsten blades, and something that we can do with our snowplow people rather than hire out that service to switch those out. There might be some initial investment up front that will be a little more, but I think in the long run, it's going to save time and money.
Okay.
And we don't have to wait on some, and don't get me wrong. I mean, when we call our service rep, and when I say our service rep, Craig, he's right here, right? And he's here in the middle of the night fixing stuff for us. So he's been great. It was actually him that made this suggestion as a way to ease our maintenance a little bit and be less expensive. So I don't know where that's going to go yet though, but it's something we're looking into.
Okay.
And one of the tractors we're looking at that's actually coming in less expensive comes with the maintenance service agreement. So that's
trying
nice.
to
Also.
See if we're at $3,000 a blade, and that depends on what you just said, Ted. We probably we're going to need to buy 3 of them because I believe neither of them currently on are transferable. Maybe plow 2s could be transferred.
Yeah, we just plow 2, so we'll definitely move those ones over.
So we'll need at least $6,000 worth of blades.
Yeah, we'll need at least plow 1. We'll need it, and then another set because we go through about a set a year or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So with 10,000, and you're gonna already knock 6,000 out of that for blades. What do you guys, that does need to be taken up, like Brian's talking about. What do you guys think? We take it to
Salt's is always
15?
one of those things
I think
that's
we should
iffy.
take it to at least 15.
It's got its own line item.
I know, but that's iffy, meaning we don't always know until we get the snow how much we're gonna use. Last year we
shed's
used a lot
full
more
now,
than this
right?
year. Yeah,
Our shed's full.
We're about 50%.
yeah.
Would you say, Ted? Yeah, we're about 50%.
But it'll, we still have more snow.
Mm-hmm.
Last year on salt, to fill that shed up last year, I don't know that we're gonna need that much this year, but I don't know where salt prices are.
Yeah.
And next year, it could go
25.
back to being a lot next year. You just never know.
Well, I think 25,000 will put us back to what we had the start of this season, which I think is sufficient enough to take us through last year. Because we started this year with far more than we did 2 years ago. And it's dry, it throws better. So I think your salt budget there's probably
could
even
move it.
high, but if we needed to, we could drop it there because you can do, the mayor can approve category shifts, right? So if we need to, we can pull from the salt budget to do, drop it down to the snow plowing, repairs and maintenance. So I think your total numbers within that column are good, personally.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying take that back down to 10 grand and within the call, within everything, there's still plenty in there, is what you're recommending?
Yeah, because of how much salt we have right now, if we end up spending $50,000 in salt next year, we're really bad on a lot of budget items because that's a lot of snow or a lot of expensive storms.
Yeah.
So I think your numbers are looking pretty good.
Okay, are we good to move on? Want to debate it? Or are we good?
We're good. I'm
Good.
good.
I like the debate, but okay.
Okay, let's go.
Parks, just taking parks down a little bit because mainly it was thought last year, this current year, we would have to buy a new lawnmower.
Oh, yeah.
But Corbett was able to fix it up before he left. And do we know if we're gonna have was it Peterson last year?
Yeah, it was mostly Dan, but yeah, Peterson.
Are we gonna have Dan again this year or